Ha! Once again, we're looking at a sequel without looking at the first movie. That's right. I mean, we've done Daddy Day Camp, we've done George of the Jungle 2, we've done those terrible Christmas movie sequels, we talked about Tooth Fairy 2, and now we're talking about Flintstones and Viva Rock Vegas. Fun.
To the town of Bedrock, where something exciting
Are you hurt?
Oh, no, Betty, I'm fine.
was about to happen.
You want a date? Your little friend want a date too?
Bonnie, tonight we shower.
Flintstones, meet the Flintstones, before they were a family.
Yabba dabba do!
The Flintstones in Viva Rock Vegas.
And the best thing about it is, this was actually directed by the same person who did the first live-action Flintstones movie, which, it may not have been that good, but let me tell you something. It was leagues above this movie. Fred Flintstone, the boy from the wrong side of the rocks, courts beautiful young heiress Wilma Slag Hopel. Along with his best friend Barney Rubble and his future fiancée Betty, Fred and Wilma head off for a romantic weekend in Rock Vegas, the hottest rock resort on the continent. 3.6 out of 10 on IMDb. That's not a good thing. So like I said, yeah, this was directed by the same guy. This is directed by Brian Levant, who has an interesting repertoire. He has the cult classic that was Jingle All the Way under his belt, and he did the first two Beethovens, and like I said, he also did the first Flintstones, and then he went on to direct this. And he also directed a horrible defilement to a classic Christmas movie, that obviously being Christmas Story 2. Yeah, he's what most movie critics like to call a hack. Alright, let's talk about Flintstones in Viva Rock Vegas. Alright, so this is actually a prequel. This takes place before the events of the first movie, or the show, I guess, and it has a very simple structure. It shows how Fred and Barney met Wilma and Betty. Simple idea, and you're probably wondering, where does Viva Rock Vegas, which is obviously their equivalent of Las Vegas, where does that come into it? Before we can get to any of that, we have to see other things. We have to set some other stuff up, like how Wilma came from some really well-off, rich caveman family, and she wanted to get away from it all, so she ran away, and she stayed with Betty, who was working as a roller girl for the restaurant that's in the intro where they pull out the giant steak and then the car falls over. Apparently, those two worked there before they met Fred and Barney. This time they're played by Mark Addy and Stephen Baldwin, surprisingly enough. You know, I'll be the first one to admit, even though he's been in some great movies, Alec Baldwin is a total ass, but he still wasn't in Flintstones Viva Rock Vegas. These guys end up meeting with Wilma and Betty while they're on the clock, and they develop feelings for them. They go on a date, except it's switched. It's, you know, each guy is with the opposite girl this time, and they ultimately end up finding out that, oh, Fred wants to be with Wilma and Barney wants to be with Betty, and it was because they have interesting ways of laughing.
Wow, you got a really great laugh.
The perfect bedrock foundation of a truly happy relationship. Or I guess in their case it actually was, because, I mean, they were happily married for a long time and they had a couple of kids, so as time goes on, the relationships keep going, and there's some terrible visual gags like you come to expect with dinosaurs and other prehistoric animals as either appliances or a carnival attractions, like in one scene. Also gotta bring this up, the Great Gazoo is a character in this movie, and he's played by Alan Cumming. I just want to say this. Alan Cumming, to me, is a lot like Rowan Atkinson in that you want to see him in better movies, but he always gets the shit end of the stick, and he always ends up in shit. It's sad and very creepy seeing Alan Cummings as a live-action Great Gazoo. It's really freaky. I didn't even watch that many Flintstones back then, but I thought that whole character of the Great Gazoo came way later. So why are they having him in the prequel to the first movie if he wasn't even featured in the first movie? My only guess is because they wanted to connect it even more to the cartoon, and throw in the character that was featured in the last few seasons, I guess. I don't know. So as the relationships are going pretty well, they then decide 30 minutes into the movie to go to Rock Vegas. And yeah, it's exactly what you'd expect. It's just Las Vegas with the traditional Flintstones, caveman, stone, rock, play on words, and all the visual gags like you come to expect. And really, from there, the movie just becomes one of those comedies where it's just set piece after set piece. There's a bunch of different wacky shenanigans going on at once. There's jokes about the casino. There's a part where Fred and Barney end up getting into a wrestling ring. Also a big song and dance number. And if there's anything I had to give credit to, the choreography was okay in that sequence. That's just fishing for compliments, really. There's a whole scene with the bowling alley where they do the trademark Fred gets on his tippy toes and does the bowling ball thing. There's a bunch of set pieces just for them to do a bunch of visual gags. And the first movie probably could have gotten away with it because it had a better budget. And while the CG and the effects aren't the worst in this, they're still not very good. I mean, lest we'd see the live-action Great Gazoo once again. I'm pretty sure you now know what I mean by the special effects. There are two crucial story beats that carry on from that point forward. From then on, the two main story elements are as follows. First, there's Wilma's mom, who's trying to drive a wedge between her and Fred, and ultimately there's, the trademark falling out, and then ultimately Fred realizes he can't live without Wilma, and he proposes to her at the end, and they end up getting together, much against Wilma's mom's wishes. The other thing is there's this asshole that is running the casino, and apparently he wants to get with Wilma because her wealthy family, because he wants to get the money to pay off debts that he owes to some gang that's out somewhere. Again, it's all just one setup so you can have these two bumbling hitmen. One's a great big fat guy and one's a little person with a very tall hat. It seriously feels like they just did that just so they could have that visual gag of the two different sized guys in the funny outfits. That's what it feels like. It was an excuse to do that. I would honestly put this on par with George of the Jungle 2 and Tooth Fairy 2, because these are just pointless sequels. I mean, even if the first Flintstones movie made money at the box office, would you really want to see a straight-to-video sequel with none of the original people, aside from the director, who, again, need I remind you, would go on to make Christmas Story 2? Everything about this just screams straight-to-video sequel, which is exactly what it was. And it just has that stink of, yeah, we made this because the first one was moderately successful, and we're going to try and squeeze any kind of milk out of that cash cow we possibly can. And again, say what you want about the first Flintstones movie. I've only seen it once, and I remember thinking it was okay, but man, this was 10 times worse. Everything about it is just, it's so unnecessary, and it's not funny, and the effects for a straight-to-video movie are mediocre at best, creepy at worst. We'll say this though, as bad as this movie is, some of the acting actually seems like they are trying to piece the movie together and try and string an actual story along. I mean, I've seen bad movies with awful actors, and the acting is just awful. And while everybody in this was hammy and mugging and overacting a lot of the time, it actually did feel like they were trying to make the best out of this and actually try to have some fun with the script that they were given. Not enough to make this a good movie. I would not recommend anybody watch this. Even if you like the first one, stay away from this. This movie sucks. So yeah, out of the two movies we've reviewed for Blockbusters this month, watch the Bionicles movie and stay away from Flintstones and Viva Rock Vegas. God. All right, so that does it for this month's episodes of the Blockbuster Show. We're going to be doing 2, maybe 3 episodes for next month. I only know a little bit about the movies that we're looking at. I haven't watched any of them yet, but we do know what movies we're doing, and we're going to try and keep it a secret. So just know that we're going to have at least 2 or 3 episodes next month, and they're going to be pretty bad. We got some pretty bad movies planned, so until then, I'm Adam Sykes of the Blockbuster Show, and we will see you guys in the next video.